Hello, are we live? I think we are. I think we're live. I was just trying to reach for a cleaner for my glasses, doing the final touches before getting started with you guys. Let's see if anybody comes in. It says that there's 2 people here. Oh, it might even plug in. Hold on. Thank goodness I noticed that. That must be better now. I would think that would be a lot better since I didn't even have the mic plugged in. Let's see. Perhaps I should try to be a little more organized. What do you think, Anna B? Should I try to be more organized, or do you like me all crazy unorganized? How are you, my dear? Hey, Sherry, how are you doing? I am so happy to report about my dog, all the good news. I just can't get over it. We're just delighted. She's doing really well. I put a photograph of her up on my community tab. So did you guys see my thumbnail? I like you exactly how you are. Oh, Anna, you make me blush. You're such a sweetheart. I love you. Thank you, my dear. Yeah, I feel like it's really nice for people to just be real and be themselves. We see so much bullshit crap, not just on the tube, but in real life as well. And let's see, which way do I want to make this go? It's like this little glowing candle over here shouldn't be that bright. Maybe if I move it back and then put this orange one in front of it, that should take care of it. I think everything's perfect, right? I've got some notes over here. This is my letter from the feds, from the FBI. You guys, I need to do a a FOIA for the incident that happened in Indiana yesterday. The thing that I made my thumbnail about. The guy who was shot by the police. The guy who was a J6er who had been released from prison, I think about 6 months ago. And then he was shot, fatally shot by law enforcement, a yesterday, a little bit southeast of Chicago, just due east of Gary. Well, actually south of there. So the town that he was from is just due east of Gary, Indiana. And then he was in Jasper County, I think, which was south of the town that he lived in. How crazy was that? Did you guys see that? Did you see this thumbnail? And I'm going to highlight that because that's just so kind of you, Anna. Thank you. Did you guys see the DW who came in and commented before we started? Like, I knew that putting up my announcement about my live early could potentially draw in some trolls like that. But I just thought it was really interesting. I'm going to read it to you guys because, my instinct was to delete it because I just get so frustrated with stuff. But then I have a good jumping off point. And, they're making all these assumptions about me. If they've ever seen my channel, I doubt it. I don't want to be making a bunch of assumptions about them. But let me get caught up with my people here. Glad Coco is doing so well. We're just amazed. Pepper, hello. I love your name, Pepper. Very cool. Good to see you. Yeah, I know. It's so happy that Coco's doing well. She's such a love bug. And have you seen Squirrels on Fire video on Kylie? No, I have not. I've been so busy lately. It's been impossible to keep up with my own videos and my yoga and my dog and the rest of my life. So no, I've noticed a couple of times that she's been working on some lives, but I haven't had a chance to drop in or catch them on the replay crew. Do you want to fill me in? That would be lovely if you do. So I'm going to read this comment that DW made. That's funny. That's like DW from Arthur. Remember that cartoon? DW was the little sister. At 2:24, I probably had put up my announcement that I was going to be doing this live just a few minutes before that. And they wrote, that guy shouldn't have been pardoned, but that doesn't take anything away from all the good things Donnie is doing. I just can't say his name. If you take a non-biased approach, you might see things differently. So I would like to ask DW to take a non-biased approach, because that person in office is so freaking crazy out of control. And I would almost say that Elon Musk is more out of control than him with his salutes and all. But Donnie's the one who's our freaking president. And for him to have a Nazi saluter standing by his side is so effing crazy, you guys. I mean, that's why I feel very compelled to talk about this stuff. I feel like we need to keep our eyes open and communicate about it. And for people that don't want to, that's fine too. I totally understand. That was my instinct initially, was just to like put my head in the sand and try to not listen, just be like, nah. But I feel like we need to stay focused and keep our eyes on the ball and keep the conversation going. So I came in about an hour later and I said, where did you come from? My point is that your demagogue set him up for this, sadly, in my humble opinion. So yeah, that's my point, is that I feel like Donnie has sent a very disturbed message to a lot of people, but to the J6ers, the message is you can do whatever you want and I've got your back, right? Something like that. My hair's all crazy. I might have to grab my emergency hat. And then to like law enforcement, the message is loud and clear. Like, people can hit you with flagpoles. Oh, the guy in the thumbnail, the J6ers. It's the man who was shot by the cop yesterday, Matthew Huttle, and his uncle. The uncle is the one on the right with the white beard, gray beard, and his last name is Huttle too. I don't think I wrote down his first name, but he was beating police with the flagpole. So he got sentenced to 3 years or 6 years. He was still serving his sentence when he got sprung on Monday with everybody else. And honestly, this guy, Matthew Huttle, he was driving down the county road, I guess. I'm not sure. Driving down the road on Sunday afternoon at about 4:15, he was pulled over by a sheriff's deputy. They got into an altercation and the deputy unalived him. So the deputy's name is not released yet. The details about like what the altercation, what spurred it, that those pieces of information are rarely released until the end of the investigation. And there's always going to be a paid administrative leave and a full investigation, even just when a pew is drawn by law enforcement, let alone fired, and let alone injuring somebody or a fatal gunshot wound. And, police are trained to take a life. They're not trained to shoot somebody to maim them or, to distract them. I mean, when they shoot, they aim to kill. That's how they're trained. That's what they do. So they're also sworn to use the least amount of force necessary to stabilize the situation. So I'm going to do a public records request for the body cam and the dash cam, and I would imagine that they'll probably release it pretty quickly to try to keep transparency and keep people from, doing their conspiracy theory stuff, especially because it's a J6er. I just feel like Donnie set up this 42-year-old to be a danger to self and others. He was already a danger to self and others, which was why he was put in prison. Had he remained in prison well, actually, he wasn't sprung Monday. Sorry. I was going to say if he'd remained there, maybe he'd still be alive. The uncle is still in prison. This guy, Matthew, was released back in the summer, I think. He only served 6 months. And so, yeah, that's a moot point. Sorry. I'm glad I caught myself before I went on with that. So the incident was about 4:15 on Sunday. It said that they completed the autopsy yesterday morning. I'm like, is that normal? Like, that's really fast. That's like wicked fast. But again, maybe it's accelerated because of the politics and everything. Indiana, it's a very conservative state. I'm in Ohio, right next door. We'll see. We'll see. I just feel like it's not a surprise. And I think that more things like this are going to happen. And I pray for the safety of everyone. I'm just glad that it wasn't law enforcement or an innocent bystander that was injured, and very sad for Matthew Huttle and his family. Let's see. Hope all is well. Oh, it is so awesome. Got to see it. Thank you, Sherry. I'll try to watch it tonight or tomorrow. She's done a couple lately. So if you want to tell me, is it like the most recent one or the one right before that? Because I think I've seen her do as many as 3 maybe in the last 3 days, right? I think I have been a head in the sand person with all of this. My friends and even some family are on the right, so I have been praying. Yeah, that's really hard, Anna. I have a family member in my immediate family who's on the right, and it's really hard. And then, the thing with my husband, quite frankly, he's law enforcement, so he's always going to respect the office no matter who's in it. I mean, that's just how law enforcement is trained, like military. Man, my hair is just a hot mess. I think I'm going to need to grab my hat, but let me see if I can do something with this little comb, because it shouldn't be like that. I'm serious. These cameras are just murder for the bangs. Let me grab this hat and see if this will save me from my bad hair emergency. And then it's so hard too because things going the opposite way. Is if I just brush it away, I could do, I feel so much more secure with a hat. I can always put the hat backwards so that people can still see me. Anyway, let me get started with all my normal stuff. It's been a few days since I've come on live, so I'm feeling a little rusty, but I'm really happy to be here. Thank you guys so much for joining me. And the thumb is over here. Shouldn't be so hard to keep everything straight, should it? Hit that thumb if you'd be so kind. And make sure you're still subscribed if you are subscribed. And if you're not, please consider hitting that sub button. It is very helpful. And then make sure that you haven't been unsubbed inadvertently. Share a video of mine with you that you think might like my channel, and turn on your notification bell to ring if you want to be notified when I come on live or when I drop a video. It's the premiere one. Awesome. Thank you. Hey, Annie Ruler. My friend's son lives in Indiana, and I told him to lawyer up, never talk to cops. Sorry, in Indiana, I feel that way. Yeah, cops in Indiana are the cops that spoke with the criminal defendant in the Idaho 4 case. Indiana is an interesting state. Like I said, I am right next door. Indiana is where the Morphews had moved away from. Suzanne Morphew and Barry Morphew, they were both born and raised in Indiana. They moved to Colorado, I think just maybe 2 years before. He may or may not have committed a fatal act of domestic violence against her, in my opinion. But yeah, the Delphi case obviously is in Indiana. And man, is that case going sideways or what? Out of control. Out of control. My sister used to live there. So yeah, I had a boyfriend that lived in Richmond, Indiana when I was in high school and started college. I went to Miami University, which is in Oxford, Ohio, right by the border, kind of between Cincinnati and Richmond. Richmond, Indiana is also right on the border, and the college there that is so renowned is Earlham College, if you've heard of it. It's very expensive, very elite. Um, Miami University is expensive and elite too. Ohio's got a lot of great schools. But anyway, so I hung out in Richmond a lot with that boyfriend back in the 80s. And I applied to a doctoral program in South Bend at Notre Dame a couple of years ago when I first started my YouTube channel. So I had gone to visit that campus. Very, very pretty campus. But South Bend is like an old, rusty ghost town other than the university and the fancy mall near there. But very economically depressed. I think the whole state of Indiana is very economically depressed, and especially after COVID. So you've got Indiana University in Bloomington, which is a phenomenal town, phenomenal university. And other than that, and then like the race cars in Indianapolis, it's always been a pretty broke state, to put it bluntly. And then after COVID, I think a lot of people were really feeling it. I mean, very, very rough. And, I think part with what's going on right now with all this political stuff, part of the concern is like, what if we have another pandemic? I mean, with all the mayhem, if the brain worm eating guy, if he gets that position that he's probably going to be confirmed for in the next 24 hours. We know Pete Hegseth was confirmed a day or two ago, or was that Friday? I can't even remember. But yeah, it's just craziness. Like there were problems with Medicare that they've resolved now, but I mean, they're putting the kibosh on everything. It's really feels like they're trying to create a state of emergency so that they can declare martial law. That's what it feels like. It really feels like, and not to be alarmist, I'm just going to say it because, and I'll say everything I say is simply my opinion for the sake of hoping to open up a discussion and learn something and have a really thoughtful conversation with my viewers. And all the videos that I make are for YouTube. It's an entertainment platform. So what I was about to say before I threw that in there was just the fear of what Donnie's been talking about for months, the WW3. And I don't like to say that. I certainly don't want to bolster any fear that any viewers are having. But I think that by addressing it and talking about it, that can be helpful in identifying what's going on and handling it. Because I think a lot of the pushback that the government got just in the last day over the Medicare problems, that went away because there was pushback. I feel like there's a lot of weird bullying type of grandstanding going on. And if people are not paying attention or people aren't objecting, it's going to be bad. And there's a lot of distractions. That's part of the whole plan with gaslighters, is to just keep the fastballs coming, millions of them, a million miles an hour, and you can't see which way is up. And then it's a great distraction. And then a bunch of new laws have been passed when you weren't looking, basically, right? So I've been watching a ton of political stuff. I still am watching my true crime. I really feel like true crime and politics are having a head-on collision. Like for a little bit, I was saying they were intersecting, and then I'm like, nah, I think they're just having a head-on collision. There's a lot of crimes going on in the politics, and that's nothing new. You know, politicians have been criminals and crooks for probably as long as there's been politicians. So it just feels like it's more blatant now, and it's really bad. So I feel compelled to focus on it and talk about it, and focus on some of it just with really good comedy. I feel like I have to laugh about it. I watch a lot of the political comedians, like I've named them before, like Stephen Colbert, Seth Meyers, Jimmy Kimmel, The Daily Show with Jon Stewart. And then he just, he retired, and then he came back, and now he's started another show called The Weekly Show with Jon Stewart. And he's doing a lot of great interviews, and, these people are just exceptional. All of the comedians on The Daily Show, I think, are pretty brilliant. And I just feel like it's a real gift to be able to get some news in comic form. But then I do watch a lot of these political commentators too. So one of them, I was going to look up his name. Did you guys see this today? Was it today? Maybe yesterday. I think it was today. Like the main CNN guy quit on air. Did you guys see that? I hope not. I can't believe that they would put the health of everyone in jeopardy. It's crazy. Annabes, you know what I just found out right before I came on? And it was from this commentator. The name of the show is called Bulwark. He's really good. Tim Miller on Bulwark. That I think it was on his show that they were saying that JFK had all of his, RFK Jr., sorry. He had all of his children vaccinated, but he's like acts like a full-blown anti-vaxxer. And I did a lot of research when I was a new parent. I was living in Seattle, and everybody that had kids was in that debate to vaccinate or not to vaccinate. And we did a ton of research, and initially I didn't think that I would vaccinate, but we determined to vaccinate, and I'm so glad. And now in that area that we lived in North Seattle, where there's a physician that quote unquote educates people a lot about vaccines, and she's basically an anti-vaxxer, they have all kinds of crazy disease outbreak. I can look it up and share more with you about that. It's like on the north side of Lake Washington. It's been 23 years since I consulted with her, but I thought she sounded really smart, and I thought that she was open-minded, and she would say, like, I'm not trying to convince anybody to vaccinate or not vaccinate. I'm just trying to educate. But really, she was trying to convince people not to vaccinate. That was her thing. And the malaria that RFK Jr. is responsible for, I want to say it's like 72 lives that were lost, a bunch of them kids or something. So what was I going to look up? The CNN news anchor's name. Because, yeah. He quit on air. Jim Acosta. So, yeah, it was just today, I'm pretty sure. And I could play one for you, one of these videos. I watched a couple of them. And then Trump reacting to Jim Acosta leaving CNN, which, he was like, oh, hooray, let's have a party. The guy's a loser. I mean, it just drives me nuts with somebody that is in a high office like that. The president should not be so juvenile and bratty. I mean, seriously, he's just weird. He's really immature, in my humble opinion. So, Jim Acosta, let me write that name down. So something that one of the content creators that I watch said, and let me look him up so that I have his name handy and I can just tell you who it was. And I'll put a link in the description, of course.
You can't do that. You can't watch football.
I tried to mute the volume so I wouldn't have to see that. So this content creator, his name is Chris Norland. Have you heard of him? Norlund. He went to school with Elon Musk. Here, let me. So he went to school with Elon Musk, and he talks very frankly about his experience with Elon. He's very explicit that he didn't know him directly, but that has a lot of friends who do know him directly or did know him directly. And he said something that really struck me about the, let's just call it an accidental Roman arm gesture, right? He said that people that know Elon well believe that Elon was expecting the audience to do the salute back to him, and that he was really disappointed that they didn't, which was why he turned around and tried again to see if he could get the people behind him to do the salute with him. And that made sense to me, that just, when you watch that video of him doing it, it's so bizarre, it's so odd, and that just kind of seemed like it fit, in my opinion. But what I didn't know, and maybe you guys already knew this, is that it's completely illegal to do an arm gesture like that in Germany. It can cost you up to 3 years of prison time, and you can get fined, and you just don't do it. You don't even think about it. You don't talk about it. It's completely taboo. It reminds me of how it is here in Ohio, in the town of Kent, where Kent State University is. You don't ever talk about the Kent State University incident. Completely taboo. You do not bring it up. I actually saw a play about that, and about the whole town, and about the whole incident, that was traveling on the 50th anniversary of the incident. So I think that was 2 years ago. And it was just phenomenal, talking about, on a real microcosm, how it affected people socially like that. People that were there, present, were getting in trouble with our government for testifying to what happened. A lot like the police with the January 6th riot. And I'm glad they still call it a riot in the news. They're not trying to water it down and call it a protest like our president does, because it was a riot. It was absolutely a riot. And this guy, Matthew Huttle, pled guilty. His uncle pled guilty, but his uncle was one of the people with a flagpole whacking law enforcement with a freaking flagpole. That is just so disgusting and sacrilegious. And it's almost like a death wish, like suicide by cop. Really, you don't mess with the police like that. That if you attack law enforcement, that they have a license to kill, basically. So there are people who do try to commit the S word by cop. It's a phrase. How can I say it without saying it? Suicide by cop, right? So, when people feel like they have nothing to lose, and maybe this guy, Matthew Huttle, I can only imagine that, he had a long rap sheet. So I can only imagine that there's probably substances involved. He currently had traffic violations that he had to go to court for, which I'm going to take a wild guess that possibly drunk driving. I don't know. But he had an attorney for those traffic violations. So the attorney is, vowing to still pay attention to what had been going on with his client. It's just nuts. So I see that Nico came in. Hey there. And Sudi came in. It's been a little while. Please share what you can about the area where some had developed whatever. LOL. Now I'm confused. Okay. Oh, here we go. Let's see. When people tell you who they are, believe them. Yeah, Anna Bees, I agree. Absolutely. Very much more blatant. The name of the video is Kylie Rodney Did Not Drown. Yeah, that's a good title. I believe that to be 1,000% truth right there. Yeah, thank you. I'll totally check it out. Nico Mingo, if you can grab a link to that in Squirrels on Fire, is it her main channel or the other channel, the So Fire? Hi, Jazz. I've been listening. Love your viewpoints. Appreciate you discussing this. Oh, you're so kind. I know for some people it's hard to hear, and I understand that. So I'm not going to be offended for anybody who doesn't want to hear me talking about it because they disagree or it's just too stressful, because, we all have our opinions, and, this is why I have a channel, is to express mine. And I welcome people to express theirs. Absolutely. Just not to be rude. That's all. And it can be hard when there's disagreements. It can be hard to not be rude. Kind of becomes like a road raging thing on the internet, right? Please share what you can about the area where some had developed whatever. LOL. I'm not sure what that was from 10 minutes ago, Susie. So much was hidden from the public by Mark Z and Mr. Google. Oh, it's so disgusting. Freaks. Oh, I wanted to share with you guys what I know about Amazon when it started, when I was living in Seattle, because I had an inside track on that. So much was hidden from the public by Mark Z and Mr. Google, in my opinion, taking down videos of what was happening. I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to, but I know in general, Annie. So yeah, if you want to explain more, please do. I didn't realize you would get jailed for the hand gesture. I know. I just learned this in the last 24 hours. This is why I love doing my channel, because it keeps me on my toes to learn information. And when I hear it, I always look it up, because you can't just trust what you hear. You need to cross-reference it, right? I mean, that would be, it's easy to get fooled. And even when you cross-reference things, it's still sometimes then a matter of your opinion or how you perceive it, right? But yeah, in Germany, it's all going down right now. The Billionaire Brigade was something else to watch at the inauguration. Could you imagine all of these guys, gals gathering together if walls could talk? So, I'm not impressed with the, what was the word? The broligarchs. I'm just not impressed. Personally, the whole Bitcoin thing is just a sham, and it's a house of cards. It's like money laundering, it's fake money, it's crazy. So I don't believe any of these people are actually billionaires. I mean, obviously they have a lot of money around them and they have a lot of expensive stuff, but a lot of it is just a freaking con. It's like The Sting, with who's the hot babes in The Sting, Paul Newman and Robert Redford. That's all it is. It's just another con. More snake oil salesman, right? Why don't they ever say that they peed in the White House and one pooped on Pelosi's desk? Anna Bees, thank you for bringing that up, because I think that that's really important. It's absolutely disgusting, and it's a complete health hazard. it's very barbaric. It's like they're freaking wild monkeys, but on a psychological level, it's like total regression to like being a baby, like an angry toddler smearing feces on walls. That's not normal. These people are sick and demented, and they don't need to be encouraged. They don't need to be getting that, you know, just the whole psychology when you've got like the group and the rioters. Very, very bad predicament. Absolutely. And yeah, all they're doing is showing that they are really disgusting, juvenile weirdos. I mean, seriously. Seriously. Your friend and vaccine story, I believe you mentioned statistics. Yeah, I used to be able to rattle off a lot of statistics, not after 8 o'clock at night. So yeah, the doctor in the area, it's a thing, like it's a big thing. This was 23 years ago, and she was famous. She got even more famous, and she had a very negative impact on that area. Like, you can look at maps of the diseases, and it's like a perfect circle around her office. Let's see. But it is something that, everybody has to make their own decision about it. Um, yeah, I'll find it and then put it in the description. There's a lot. So Seattle always had anti-vaxxers, even during smallpox. That's an article from 2020. So back when they were dealing with COVID, May of 2020. And yeah, a lot of activists in the Seattle area. I mean, activists of all sorts, but especially with the vaccines. And that's where we were when we became new parents. So it was kind of like the trendy thing back then. Everybody was talking about it. I mean, we were like hipsters, right? And everybody was teaching their kids sign language, because you can teach your kids sign at a much younger age than you can teach them how to talk. So, I mean, just goofy stuff like that. I mean, they're going to learn how to talk soon enough, and then they're never going to shut up, right? Bitcoin buying air. Oh, and then this whole thing with the meme coin is nuts. Absolutely nuts. Our country is in a constitutional crisis. Congress is stepping in. Thank goodness that Congress is stepping in. Yeah, I mean, I think about when the current president, called the guy in Georgia and asked him to find him a few thousand votes, and he said no. And Donnie was irate. People don't say no to Donnie. He doesn't take no well. And then when Pence wouldn't do what he wanted him to do on January 6th. So the man in Georgia, I think that was in Atlanta, and Mike Pence, they both saved us from the situation that we're in now. And I'm just hoping that there's going to be a lot more good people like them. And it surprises me to hear myself call Mike Pence a good person, because I'm pretty much at odds with him on everything. But I love him for what he did on January 6th, and that, he saved our country, in my opinion. And same with the guy in Georgia. I don't remember his name. And, I've told you guys, some of these insiders who used to be on the inside track with the current president, like Michael Cohen. Sorry. Michael Cohen and Scaramucci. Anthony Scaramucci. They were both such dirtbags in the first administration. I didn't think I would ever see anything positive in their characters. And I see so much positive in their characters. I love it. I love it when people surprise me like that. And they're still different than I am. I wouldn't agree with them on everything, but I agree with them on a lot. And I just think that it's remarkable when people can learn from their own mistakes and admit that they've made mistakes and really make amends, like truly make amends. Like that's what it's all about. That's what recovery is all about when you're dealing with 12 steps and addiction. And I think it's what life is all about. So those two men have really impressed me over the years. And then this one, if you guys haven't heard me say this already, it just kills me to say it. What's his name? Oh, he's so gross. Steve, the big guy, the really, really disgusting guy. What is his name? I'm like totally blanking. This is what happens when I'm doing a live this late at night. Steve Bannon. See, I have to touch my phone for my brain to kick in. Steve Bannon is a nut job and a half, but he's been saying a lot of brilliant things lately, in my opinion. So it's just wild to see people make changes, and that's good. I mean, if there's one thing that you can count on in life, it's change. And if you can choose the direction of the changes that you're making, then that's a position of power and positivity, in my opinion. My granddaughter learned hand signals. Didn't talk for 2 years. Has her shots. So yeah, my kids all had their shots. My son, my oldest son, the one who's in the military now, he didn't talk till he was like 5. Like he just didn't talk. He had speech therapy from before he was 2 because our pediatrician caught it really early. And it was one of those situations, kind of like Einstein, where he didn't need to talk because his big sister took care of everything for him. And then when he started preschool and kindergarten, he still didn't need to talk because all the kids around him took care of everything for him. And he literally could tell you an entire story without using a single word. And I called him my little Charlie Chaplin because he would mime whatever it was that he was trying to say. And he could tell stories without a single word. It was freaking amazing. But it really is a sign of intelligence. I don't think it had anything to do with the vaccinations. The oldest daughter, she started talking like on regular schedule. By the time they're 24 months, they're supposed to have 24 words, basically. And then the second boy, he was also not that much of a talker, and he also had speech therapy. And then the second daughter, the daughters just have the gift of gab, I guess. But with both of my sons, it was things with like the formation of their mouths and their tongues, and they just had a lot of trouble articulating. So it was really good that they had speech therapy from a really young age. And honestly, I think they both still struggle with it a little bit, but you can understand them at least. It's kind of cute when people have speech impediments, I think, as long as you can understand them. If you can't understand them, it's really hard. Or if they're really embarrassed about it, it's hard. It's one of the reasons why I love that one comic on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart, Ronnie Chang, I think is his name, the guy from Malaysia. And he also has a speech impediment, or if I'm saying that right, a speech impediment. And I just think it's adorable that he talks on television for a living despite a speech impediment and a pretty severe accent too. So he overcomes it. I mean, I never have trouble understanding him, but it just makes him that much more endearing, in my opinion. Did you ever watch Portlandia with Fred Armisen? I love Fred Armisen. It's so funny and has the whole higher society on blast. I've never watched that. I'm writing it down. Portlandia. I will check that out. Because, yeah, I love that comedian. And I didn't see the SNL thing that I guess was over the weekend, or was it last night? They did like a big 50-year anniversary thing. They probably did it on Saturday night, right? But yeah, Fred Armisen is excellent. I forgot about him because he wasn't on SNL for that long. Annie Ruler, that's what my great niece did. My son and his son didn't talk until they were 3 and then started talking in full sentences. And that's the story with Einstein, was that he never spoke a word until one night at dinner when he was 5. And I don't know if this is true or if it's folklore, but he said, "Please pass the butter." And his whole family was just stunned. And they were like, "You can talk?" And he's like, "Yeah." And basically he said that, he always got what he needed before he needed to say anything. So he never needed to talk. And I think he had a big sister who would make sure that he had butter or whatever it was before, she was anticipating his needs before he was. So he never needed to speak. Anna, now I want to watch Portlandia. Oh, I didn't see that SNL thing. No, I didn't see it either. And I heard it was 3 hours long and that it was really good. So that'll take a while to catch up on. There's so much to catch up on right now, you guys. So much. So the guy who was in prison, I think he was serving multiple life sentences. The guy who started the Silk Road, and he literally unalived children with all of his fentanyl and rugs that he sold. And he's been pardoned. And now they're talking about that our current president might be giving him his billions of dollars back that would basically come out of the taxpayers' money. So that's freaky AF, in my opinion. So you remember a few days ago, I expressed my opinion about when the president asked one of his aides what those drones were flying overhead in New Jersey. And he's like, "Find out what those drones were." Like, first he's talking to the public and he's like, "I'm going to find out what those drones were. We need to find out." And then he says to one of his aides, "Hey, find out what those drones were." And just watching him behave that way really confirmed for me that he knew damn well what those drones were for. Like, as if it's just crossing his mind while he's talking to the public to ask his aide to look. So they've looked, they've done research, and they say that the FAA had previously approved the flight of the drones and that they were for research and other reasons. Like to scare people into thinking that there's going to be a World War III so that they'll vote for the dude. Because, I mean, you got to be honest. If you're thinking that we're going to have a world war, it is a little insecure feeling to think about a woman being in charge, in my opinion. And I'm a woman that believes that women can do anything that men can do, and sometimes better. But, we haven't had a female president before. And, you don't want to be giving our country any disadvantage with world peace like that. But I think that we're in a disadvantage with world peace right now, especially the way this guy keeps pissing everybody off and offending everybody. And, it's all just a bunch of bravado to him. It's all just a bunch of hubris. It has nothing to do with anything except him. It's all about him. It's little skits, but so hilarious. Anna B's, one of my favorite SNL actors of all time is Phil Hartman. So I would imagine that they had a lot with Phil Hartman. So I'm looking forward to that. I was looking for a replacement of Schitt's Creek. It's crazy too. So, Sudi, I know that people that watch my channel a lot are probably sick of me saying it, and they know what I'm going to say right now. I discovered a miniseries, an HBO miniseries called Sharp Objects over Christmas break. So good. I've watched it twice. I'm ready to watch it a third time because it's so good. So if you're looking for a good miniseries and you haven't heard of it or you haven't seen it, I would highly recommend it. Annie Ruler says, my twin girls were codependent. Jess would talk for them. Jen didn't talk or walk, didn't care. Now hates her twin for being bossy. Born 1979, 8 years of silence between them. Whoa, that is wild, Annie. That is wild. Yeah, I mean, I definitely have the gift of gab, but I have gone through periods of my life where I was very, very quiet and I would only speak if necessary. And, I kind of think that's a cool way to be. But right now, I find it necessary to talk a lot. So, but it's interesting, when you're quiet, people fill the airspace. And so you gather a lot of information from other people when you're quiet. It's a good skill to have, just to keep your mouth shut, right? So I will for sure start Portlandia. Annie, I bet it's been so fun having twins. I have 3 children, but no twins, LOL. Each time I was pregnant, I would pray for twins and pray not for twins simultaneously. I thought it would be really cool, and twins do run in our family, but I also thought it'd be very overwhelming. I remember being happy Bush was in office to handle 9/11. Little did I know that he may have orchestrated it. Yeah, Annie Ruler, I honestly don't know that much about it all, but I do know some information that I've picked up over the years. Yeah, the Bushes have a pretty wild history with the oil moguls on the planet, right? A pretty wild history. So, yeah, he didn't seem to handle it too well, in my opinion. And yeah, Al Gore, I think, may have handled it better, but we can't go back, huh? Woulda, shoulda, coulda. Sharp Object sounds good too. Oh, Sudi, it's so freaking good. It's a psychological thriller. It's so good. I won't keep talking about it because, like I said, my regulars are probably sick of hearing me talk about it, but they all know, and some of them have already seen it before I discovered it. So, my daughter has always talked a lot, and it can be frustrating when people talk a lot and you don't feel like they're saying anything, right? Yeah, I think it's important to use our words wisely. Communication is key, but if we're not listening, we're not communicating. The most important part of communication is the listening. And that was something that I learned as a therapist. I mean, as a therapist, you're a professional listener, and you learn really quickly that people need to be heard, and that a lot of times in our regular lives, we don't really hear the people around us because we're too busy trying to be heard. So that's why, in my opinion, that's why psychotherapy can be so valuable, because it's somebody's job to basically shut the F up and facilitate the other person to talk through their issues and help guide them to their own truth and revelations. It's a lot of fun. Adversity gave them great financial responsibility. Son, 8th grade education, $300K pool company, 6 kids he planned. Wow. That's wild with an 8th grade education. That is really wild. Bush Sr. supposedly involved with JFK. So that's the one really interesting thing that our current president just signed, one of those executive orders to release the files of JFK. Well, it's JFK Jr., right? RFK and I want to say Marilyn Monroe, but no, the other one was Martin Luther King. And yeah, those files should have been released a long time ago. And it is pretty wild. I just heard Carolyn Kennedy speaking today on a YouTube channel about how painful it is for her to see her uncle basically exploiting his own father's assassination and her father's assassination in efforts to further his own career. So I thought that was pretty profound. You know, she doesn't speak out a lot, but she also said that he did some really disgusting things. Like he put small animals in a blender to feed to his birds of prey. And that it was just like this really gory show that he would put on. Like, that's the kind of thing that serial unalivers do. You know? I mean, putting small animals in a freaking blender. You don't need to do that. Your freaking bird of prey knows how to eat its own thing whole. You don't need to prepare it for them. Like, that's just disgusting. Releasing all this info, boy, the holes people will go down. I don't know what that means, Susie. Oh my goodness, animals in a blender. Yeah, small animals. But yeah, I'll put a link to that thing that I was watching. I'll find it in my history and I'll put it in the description. It was Carolyn Kennedy, I think, speaking up today about her disdain for him and how he handles himself. And like I said, what he does to exploit her father's assassination and his own father's assassination. I was talking about it in one of my lives a couple of weeks ago. I kind of evaluated, taking a guess at it, that RFK might have been around 14 years old, RFK Jr., when his father was assassinated. I want to say he was born in 1960. What year was his dad assassinated? His dad was assassinated probably in like 69. Or was he assassinated before JFK? I have it all written down somewhere. Let's see. RFK assassination date was June 5th, 1968. And then the date of birth for RFK Jr. $1954. So yeah, I nailed it. 14. Imagine that. I know I can't stand it when I'm like throwing all these numbers out on my lives and I just like turn into this like numbers soup in my brain and like, what am I even talking about? So yeah, that's kind of cool that I got those numbers right. But my point in talking about that a couple of weeks ago and talking about it now is that as a 14-year-old boy, like how frightening to have your father taken from you like that, taken from the earth and taken from you. I mean, that's some severe trauma. I wonder if he's ever had therapy. Dare I ask? Not that it's any of my business, but for anybody who's had a family member red rummed, losing somebody that you care about is always hard, but in my experience, having known people that have passed away from different things, including self-inflicted and including violence from another, that's the hardest to cope with. The violence from another, even self-inflicted, is extremely tragic, but it's even more tragic when it's somebody else's insanity that is played out on your loved one. It's awful. It's absolutely awful. And then being such high profile, just nuts. Yeah, so he was 14 in 1968. So then by the time Martha Moxley, when her tragedy happened in 75, 7 years later, he was about 21. So, and he was the same age as some of the Skakel brothers. The youngest of the Skakel brothers were 15, Michael Skakel, the one that served time for Martha Moxley's bludgeoning. And then the one directly above him, Tommy Skakel, was 17 at the time in 1975. And then they're a Catholic family, so all the kids are about a year apart because they don't use any kind of birth control. That's just the way it is. So there were 7 kids total. One of them was a sister, but going from 15 and adding 7 would make 22-ish, the oldest one. And then with RFK Jr. being 21. I know he hung out with them a lot. There's a lot of photographs of him with the whole family, and not anybody else in his family, just him hanging out with the Skakels as if they're like that tight, which makes sense when their ages are so similar. And then that other one, William Kennedy Smith, I want to say he was 15 also, that he was the same age as the youngest. Because for years there were rumors that William Kennedy Smith was there that night when that happened. You know, the grisly red rum of Martha Moxley in Greenwich, Connecticut, in the night before Halloween, 1975. Terrible, terrible case. And then Martha Moxley's mother, Dorothy Moxley, just passed away last month, just in December of 2024. And then also Ethel or Edith Kennedy, RFK Jr.'s mother, she just passed away this past October. And both Ethel, I think it's Ethel Kennedy, right? Or is it Edith Kennedy? I always get it confused. Ethel Kennedy and Dorothy Moxley were both in their 90s. I want to say Dorothy passed away from the flu. And Ethel, I think, was 96, and I'm not sure what she passed away from. But she had a lot of kids. I want to say she had 18 kids, but that's not right. How many siblings does RFK Jr. have? Because she was married to RFK, I think, for about 18 years before he passed away. And then, let's see. Okay, so they had 11 children. And it's funny, it doesn't even have his wife's name on here. Why would that be? That's weird. Spouse. Okay, Ethel. It is Ethel Kennedy. So, Ethel, what did she pass away from? She passed on October 10th, 2024. And she had a stroke. Okay. All right. I'll put that down. Have we been on for an hour? My cousin Bambi Larson, MS-13 hit with K-Bar, 4 a.m., San Jose, California. Police won't investigate, just a crazy guy. That's awful, Annie. I'm so sorry. When was this? My family and myself are Catholic. I went to Catholic church growing up. I went with friends. I wasn't Catholic, but I attended a Catholic church a lot. I really liked it. We do not have a bunch of kids. No, that was more like back then. So yeah, just to have some clarity with that, that it was, I mean, there still are large Catholic families, but it's a lot less of a thing than it used to be. People of the Mormon religion have a lot of kids still these days. It's like a status symbol, like how many kids you can have. So what else do I want to share with you guys before I wrap her up? My notes are really messy. I need to get a new notebook. So Steve Bannon said he thought that the indoor inauguration last Monday was a plot to nullify Trump's inauguration or his swearing in. I mean, he was talking crazy talk. This was from that content creator. I mentioned it in one of my last videos, Fair and Balanced, and his video, from the Ring of Fire. He has 2 channels. He has Fair and Balanced. I think his first name is Farron and his last name is Cousins. And then his other channel is Ring of Fire. And he was talking about Steve Bannon saying that the indoor inauguration was a plot to nullify Trump's election or taking office. And it sounded like crazy talk, but it makes me wonder if Bannon had some insider information that, I mean, maybe he's just insane, right? I mean, that was kind of what Fair and Balance was doing with the first video I told you guys about, the one where the president is admitting with his own mouth, in his own words, that Musk manipulated the computer, the one that tallies up the votes, and that is how he came into being president. Like, he said that in so many words. Again, I'll put a link in the description so you can see for yourself. It's Mr. T saying it. And Fair and Balanced talked about it. A lot of channels have talked about it now, but not enough. I think we need to go back to that and make sure that everybody knows that he said these things. And what did he mean? Was he just speaking in hyperbole? Was he being sarcastic? Fair and Balanced said, maybe he's just completely demented and it's just the dementia talking. And I think that he was kind of telling on himself. That's what I think. I think it needs to be taken seriously. Annie says February 18th, 2019. Wow, that wasn't very long ago. So coming up on 6 years. My cousin told police department and the district attorney, we suspect her ex-hubby's next wife, he must have had a feeling, took wife off as trustee for his adult kids. A few months later, she was offed. Wife quit work. That's terrible, Annie. I'm so sorry. But yeah, it's insane how common it is for domestic violence and for spousal domestic violence. It's god awful, and it's so dangerous. It's unreal, isn't it? So I am fading. I'm sure you can tell. It's only 9 o'clock, but I've been up since 6 probably. And yeah, lots of driving around. And I'm just really happy to be on live. So thanks for watching. Thanks for being here. Sanctuary was his 8th or 9th felony, was deported out of Texas, came back. Awful. Yeah, the person who took Zapata's life, Mesquia, I do not like to say his name. He passed away in prison from COVID. It took 10 years to catch him. And he was from Cuba. He was deported here from Cuba by Fidel Castro. He was a dangerous criminal, and Fidel Castro shipped over boatloads of dangerous criminals, and he was one of them. And I'm sure Mia Zapata is not the only person whose life he took, but she was the only person whose life he took that he finally got charged with. So who else was it who I just found out died of COVID? The guy, Ron Logan, the one in Delphi that owned the property that Abby and Libby were discovered on. He passed away, I think, February of 2022, and I didn't know what from. I just found out tonight before I came on live that he passed away from COVID. But I think it's weird that he passed away in February 2022. It had been many years. I can't remember the year that they were slaughtered or taken. Was it like 2015 or 2013? But then they arrested Richard Allen, I think, in October of 2022. So I'm going to take a wild guess that Ron Logan had money and connections. I mean, he was a landowner, he was a farmer, and police just didn't really question him much. And they were found on his freaking property, and he was on probation, and he was violating his parole by driving. And he had domestic violence in his past, and his past partners had reported that to the police. So I'm thinking that he knew the police. So let's see what the date of Delphi was. Anyway, so he passed away from COVID, allegedly. It's so sad. (2017) February 13th, 2017. So wait a second. But then he passed away February of 2022. I think his name is Ron Logan, right? No, he died August 30. No. That's not him. That's a different Ron Logan. I typed in Ron Logan Delphi case. When did he pass away? He died in January of 2022, so 5 years later. And then I think Richard Allen was arrested somewhere around October, if I'm remembering right. But yeah, the motions that have been filed to vacate the convictions, it'll be interesting to see what happened with what happens with that. So he was 77 when he passed away. I was going to rack my brain with some math. Was he about 72 then when it happened? And he was really healthy too. So it's not like he would have had trouble physically. The other thing about those girls is that there was not evidence of a struggle. And Ron Logan knew their parents. So that would make a lot of sense that there was no struggle, because this was a guy that they knew their parents. So they would have trusted him and went along with him. And then the story allegedly is that they were getting uncomfortable. One of them said something about calling the police, and he freaked out and did that. But that's just a story. We don't know if that's true. Yeah. I want to know how big that farm was. Like, was that like a small farm, or was that a big farm? And what did he farm? Does anybody know? Let's see. I'm glad you came on. Thanks, Anna Bees. You're so sweet. I'm so glad I came on too. I really wanted to. I know I thought about skipping it just because things are busy. And then I was like, I can't skip it. I got to do it. Even if it's just low key. That's cool. Cool by me. Thanks so much for being here, you guys. Have a good night. Check out SoFire. Thank you. I will definitely. Ron Logan wrote confession. I feel he was willing to take it all for the bunch. I feel was there, in my opinion. Annie Ruler, yikes. I believe it. I mean, you are always so sharp and steps ahead of the game. I believe it. Because, yeah, usually that's how most are, is it's all pinned on one person, and it's not just one person. And Anna says, I didn't know he confessed. Yes, I feel at least on law enforcement or judge was at Delphi with Ron. Elvis Fields, etc. They have a damage control person trying to keep law enforcement narrative going, in my opinion. Yeah, I totally believe that, Annie Ruler. That's entirely possible. Very plausible. It's just so sad. I mean, these little girls should not be victims. Nobody should be a victim, but these children were victims. And, you know, just all the banter and back and forth. And it's like, the truth needs to come out. People need to know the truth. And those girls deserve justice and deserve the truth. And having the wrong person serving time for it it just adds insult to injury. Kind of like that case here in Ohio, Dean Gillespie, the guy who was sentenced for multiple essays. And after he was released after 23 years, that was his first thought, was how sad this was for the victims that thought that they got justice and they thought that they were safe, and neither of those things happened. I mean, and he was a victim too, a victim of the system, and the law enforcement, they knew damn well it wasn't him. They pinned it on him. So it makes me think that they did that to protect one of their own. Because why would you do that? Why would you put somebody innocent behind bars intentionally? And it's not like it's that rare, unfortunately. And then allow dangerous criminals to be on the loose with the general population. Unbelievable. I admit I didn't get into that case much because it was so terrible and there were so many rumors. Right, the Delphi case, I pretty much stayed out of it too, Anna Bees. It wasn't until this thing with Ron Logan that it suddenly kind of clicked for me, and I was like, that sounds about right. And I know Annie Ruler has paid more attention to the case, so she knows more of the ins and outs. We need our jazz time. Oh, thank you, dear. Yes, the people that felt RA'd untaped confessions for the worst of it now believe Ron Logan's confession is trash. Wait, I'm confused, Annie Ruler. The people that felt that Richard Allen's untaped confessions for the worst of it now believe Ron Logan's confession is trash. Okay, that's perplexing my brain, but that's okay. It's all right to have a perplexed brain. I can't even speak. I better log off quickly. It's okay to have a perplexed brain, right? As long as you can say it. So, you guys, I'm going to try to come on live tomorrow evening. I don't know. There's no guarantees. So, if I can't come on tomorrow evening, I'll definitely be trying to do it the day after. And sending you love and light. Thank you again for joining me. Have a lovely evening. I hope you get your rest, your relaxation, your nourishment, and staying hydrated, and just taking good care of yourself and loving yourself and the people around you. Ron Logan writes a confession. RA had prisoners listen. Richard Allen. Interesting. All right. Love and light. See you on the next one. Thanks again. Take care.